What is up, everybody? Jay York football checking in. The Steelers are undefeated right now. It's a great time to be a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, and you are tuned in to the one and only The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. Before we bring on our great guest today, just want to shout out to our favorite people in our partnership over at DraftKings. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code 6SPORTS. Again, that is 6SPORTS. That code will get you $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Yes, and as we said, we have a great guest, a contributor over at DraftKings, as well as MB Fantasy, Geoff Ulrich. We'll get to it right after the intro. Sammy, run it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Flacco Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Yes, and why don't we bring him on? Geoff Ulrich, how are you?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Love all your work. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. I know you're a numbers guy, into the betting. Steelers over under win total was at 8.5. Are you confident that they're going to go over that?
Yeah, I am pretty confident, to be honest. You know, it's funny, just as we were right before we were coming up, I was looking at the rest of their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Steelers did themselves just a huge number of favors by getting off with that win against Atlanta. Everyone would probably expect them to beat Denver anyways, but you know, when you look at the rest of the schedule, there's still winnable games left. And, you know, I bet the Steelers over last year. I didn't take it this year, and I'm just I'm just wondering why I didn't take it, because realistically, I think you look at this defense, you know, they're pretty much injury-free. They're almost better than they were last year. And, you know, the Arthur Smith thing kind of scared me a bit, but the offense couldn't be worse than it was last year, in my opinion. So, yeah, I look at the schedule the rest of the way. The Browns aren't.
It's been a rough 2 years in Pittsburgh with quarterback play. So just to find the end zone last game was enough to kind of keep the optimism going.
And look, like that's going to be like a weekly thing, right? Where sometimes the offense stalls, but you know, you just look at the schedule, like the Browns are stalling. The Ravens aren't as good as people thought they were. Like there's enough winnable games here that 8.5, like I said, I'm kind of kicking myself I didn't take that preseason.
Yeah. So let's talk about quarterback from a fantasy perspective as well. I know you're a fantasy guy over at MB Fantasy Life. We'll talk more about that as we get into the show, but talk about the value you see in Justin Fields. Obviously, like if Russ is healthy, we don't know what's going on, but they're riding a hot hand right now. No turnovers. Just kind of talk about his fantasy value and where you see that ending up.
I mean, I think from a fantasy perspective, like Fields has way more value than Russell Wilson does at this point. I mean, just the explosive playmaking with your legs at this point. You know, you can say like, well, Fields hasn't done that much, you know, to start the year really. Like just from a fantasy perspective, obviously he's winning games. That's all, you know, Pittsburgh fans care about necessarily. But you know, like you also have to look at the opponents and like how these games have gone. I mean, they just haven't. No one's put Justin Fields in that situation where he's dropping back 30 plus times a game yet. And when he does, he's going to take off more and have that potential to get like 60 yards, 80 yards and a touchdown just with his legs. So. I mean, I kind of like just stashing Fields, almost using him as like a weekly matchup if you're in a season long league. Now, the problem is the Russell Wilson thing is looming, and I do think like long term, I think Russell Wilson is probably the better answer for this team, just from like a win-loss perspective and going into the playoffs. And I think I think Mike Tomlin probably thinks that too. So you have that fear where Wilson could come back, Fields loses all value. But I like the upside with Fields. You just have to deploy him, matchup dependent.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thing from a non-fantasy perspective. Like, he's obviously a Super Bowl champion. He knows what it takes to win. I understand that he's not going to be the Russ of 5-10 years ago. But in your opinion, if he's healthy on the field, not talking fantasy, would you week 8, week 9, kind of be like, hey, let's give it a go, even if the Steelers are above 500 and playing good ball?
I would personally. I mean, I just think you
I
look at
agree
how the
with you.
Steelers
Yeah.
team. I know, and some people are like, man, like how can you sit Justin Fields if he's winning and he's just more explosive? But like you look at how the Steelers set up as a team, like they remind me of that Broncos team that Peyton Manning led to a Super Bowl late in his career.
Yeah.
And I think Wilson isn't as dusty as Peyton Manning was that
Nah.
season. I think Wilson can still make some throws. I think potentially working shorter passes with George Pickens when Wilson gets back will up his efficiency. Like the best scenario for Pittsburgh would be to mesh these two quarterbacks together, the explosive playmaking with Fields' legs. But if you can keep Russ healthy into the playoffs, I think when you get to the playoffs, that's just the quarterback I would rather roll with. And especially, I mean, you never know at this point. Like Pittsburgh could have home field advantage, like cold weather games. I'd rather have Russ sitting there game managing, just making 1 or 2 plays maybe to make the edge. But Fields, I like Justin Fields too. Like
Yeah.
I was of the opinion that the Bears made a mistake. They should not have just thrown him away casually. And as the way Caleb Williams has started, that's maybe looking like the correct take. But I think Fields has potential, and I think they made a really savvy decision bringing him in, to be honest, because I still think this team can go places with Fields. I just think a healthy Russ probably a better option come playoff time.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because, we do weekly podcasts and we have local media players, everyone under the sun on. And, you tell people that and they're like, why would you take out Justin Fields? I'm like, it's a long season, number one. And number two, having a veteran like Russ in the locker room alone, I just feel like he's that type and he has a chip on his shoulder as well. And I think the Steelers quarterback situation, obviously, we kind of moved on from Kenny Pickett, thankfully. I wish him the best of luck. But yeah, that was just long overdue that needed to happen. And we're just seeing that with even a little bit of competent QB play and not turning over the ball, you could rely on this Steelers defense to get it done. And if you have a guy that's a veteran that knows what it takes to win, I think that the Steelers can make a run. I mean, you can't win it. You cover this and do this for a living. Like there's very few elite QBs, but you could get back. I mean, Trent Dilfer, let's take it back that far. He won a Super Bowl. So that's just a perfect example right there. As long as you're not turning over the ball, I just think Russ gives more of that X factor. And both of them money wise, long term, it's like if the Steelers wanted to draft a QB, they very well could do that. So it's just the future. We're in a good position. Over here at Steeler Nation right now. So let's shift gears to this coming Sunday's game with the Chargers. 2 very good defenses. Obviously, Harbaugh over there, kind of like a new era, bringing a new, whatever you want to call it, morale, whatever it is, just something. It seems like I know Justin Herbert was a little bit banged up, but what do you think? What is the outcome that you see for this game? And do you think that the Steelers can pull it out, or do you think the Chargers get a win on the road?
I mean, this is, for a game that has a 36-point total, this is actually one of the more interesting, like low total games you'll see, because I think both these teams are legit. And I think that the Chargers are the type of team that can potentially give the Steelers trouble in the long run because they have that elite QB that I think can deal with some of the stuff that Pittsburgh does on defense, like throwing away from primary coverage and being able to read the field. Herbert's just I think he's just a very underrated quarterback. The problem with the Chargers this week is he's not 100%. And their run game, which, if it was a weaker opponent, they could just go, okay, we're just going to hand it off to J.K. Dobbins. This won't be a big deal. I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to allow them to do that. So this game for me, like right now, is just to stay away from betting. If I was going to bet a side, it would probably be the Chargers because I just really do believe in Justin Herbert. And I don't like betting against, elite quarterbacks with a good head coach. But This is probably just going to be a stay away.
I learned
I
my
think it's gonna
lesson
be
with that with Patrick Mahomes. Never get a
yeah,
bet against Patrick Mahomes. I've did that a few times, and yeah, we know what the outcome of
the
that
same
was.
kind of deal. And I'm not saying Herbert's Mahomes, but he's a very top end
Yeah,
quarterback. And
definitely.
yeah, so I think this is going to be a very tough, hard fought game. I think it'll be close. It won't shock me if the Steelers win this either. I think
Mhm.
they've kind of caught the Chargers potentially on a good week with this Herbert stuff. I
They've
think
been
it'll be
on the East Coast supposedly. We had a guy on here, and he was telling us that the Chargers have been on the East Coast for a week and a half now. I don't know if that
yeah.
will play much into it, but I mean, it's kind of definitely, hey, so
It's another smart, savvy move that they wouldn't have done last year, I don't think, with Brandon Staley. It's
mhm.
having Harbaugh there, I think just legitimizes this team a little bit. So don't really want to bet against the Steelers or the Chargers. But they would be the side for me this week. If and maybe if Justin Herbert shows better in practice on Friday, it may take a little piece. But this is one I'm just going to probably just sit and watch.
Yeah, and I feel like the past few years, this is I wanted to get your take too. So like I was pretty much taking the under on all the Steeler games because obviously we were scoring like 13 points. I just feel like we're right there. I just like need that one game where I'm not going into cardiac arrest and just making sure that, hey, it would be great to just see like give me like 28 points, like I'd be happy with, like not 6 field goals from Chris Boswell. Do you think that that I possibly think if I was a betting man that this could be kind of like a breakout game for the Steelers' first home game? Arthur, so if it was going to happen, I think that it could possibly, and I would just take a bet and put it on the over. I'm not even sure what the over under on this was. I didn't have it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think you would take there? I know our viewers love this, and shout out to DraftKings. And we'll talk about all the stuff that you're doing as well too to end the
You
show.
know, you know what an interesting angle might be for this game? Because the total's at 36, and like even at 36, I'm not super bullish on the over, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually really like the under at like 37, but the Steelers team total might be worth taking over. I don't have
Okay.
it right in front of me, but when you think about this game, like I think the Steelers actually have a little bit more blow potential just because of the Herbert situation. And if they get to him
Yeah.
early, they really suffocate him. They get some of these big plays from Pickens this week that they missed a couple weeks, the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that scenario. I think there's a little bit more chance of that happening just with the Steelers' health being better. So, over the Steelers team total, yeah, you're right. Like at some point, this team is going to have 2 George Pickens touchdowns and they're going to
Yeah.
put up 21, 28 points. It could be a spot. I think if I was looking for a total to go over on, I'd go over Steelers team total. I think that's actually a pretty good bet, maybe for like same game parlays too, if you're looking to sort of combine stuff this week.
There you have it. And before we get you out of here, really appreciate your time. Love all your work. Just tell our viewers and fans where they can find you at if they want to follow you more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind. You can find me a lot of my work, obviously some on DraftKings for daily fantasy plays.
Mm-hmm.
DraftKings Playbook, DK Nation, and also MB Fantasy Life, Matthew Berry's site, fantasylife.com. Got some stuff up there today, some betting props. And I will say this, throw this out. I really like Pat Freiermuth overs this week. More receptions. I think Freiermuth is going to be in a good spot this week. So looking for some Freiermuth overs.
He's definitely due. I mean, we're due in general, but definitely him, especially with the new contract as well. It's time to, put up or shut up. So I think that it's going to be like I said, I'm gonna take the over and just pray that it happens. But again, really appreciate your time, love your work, and I know our viewers are running the DraftKings right now and putting in a parlay. So thank you for your time, man, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Absolutely, anytime. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Yeah, there you have it. So we already gave you the code. You're going to get $250 in bonus bets, $5 deposit. The man himself, Geoff, DraftKings contributor, just gave you everything you need to know. Get that over. Big game from Muth. And Steelers could be 3-0 come Sunday. Wouldn't be surprising. Again, I'm glad that Geoff, because so many people get on me when I say, oh, if Russell's healthy, start Russell. I know that a lot of people are like, why, if it's not broken, why fix it? But I just think that veteran leadership, kind of getting the ball down the field a little bit more, opening that up. If we're going to make a run, Obviously every year it's pretty much with the Steelers Super Bowl or bust. I know the playoff, drought and everything like that, but it's a city of champions and we're just trying to get back. We have that championship caliber defense. Just got to get it clicking on offense, and it all starts with the man behind the center. And we just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, Geoff, for joining us. Mike got some things to do, so just riding solo, but he'll be back with us next week. Go back and watch our show with Steelers. Deshaun Elliott had a lot to say about this defense. Kind of gave Mike a little bit of a hard time too, because he picked the Broncos to win. So that was always fun. And we're just going to keep cranking out shows. So make sure you subscribe, tell your friends, your grandma, wherever they are, Panama City, Italy, California, Steeler Nation worldwide. Jay York Football out. Sammy Anello, take it away.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.